At 21, he climbed into his first tank, unaware that 9 years later he would meet his end in a similar machine. Between those years, he carved a reputation that few could rival. Michael Wittmann became the most feared and most highly decorated tank commander of the Second World War, not just within the SS, not just among German forces, but across all nations involved. His record is staggering. Over 138 enemy tanks destroyed, more than 132 anti-tank guns neutralized, along with countless armored vehicles, trucks, and personnel carriers. All of this he achieved from the confined interior of a single tank, commanding a crew of 5, across battlefields stretching from the vast plains of the Soviet Union to the countryside of Normandy. On a quiet June morning in a small Norman town, he performed an act so extraordinary that even decades later, historians still debate its significance. This is the full story. Every engagement, every decoration, every controversy, and the unvarnished truth about the man behind the legend. Michael Wittmann entered the world on April 22, 1914, in Vogel, a tiny farming settlement in the Oberpfalz region of Bavaria, southern Germany. The village was so small it appeared on few maps, and most Germans had never heard of it. Born to a farming family, he was the second of 5 children. His parents were devout Catholics, rooted in conservative values, and lived modest, ordinary lives on their land. Nothing in this upbringing, nothing in the quiet fields and dense forests of rural Bavaria, hinted that this boy would one day become history's most renowned tank commander. After completing his schooling, he worked alongside his family on their farm. In 1934, at the age of 20, he did what many young German men of that era did. He volunteered for military service. He fulfilled his mandatory term in the Reichswehr, the professional German army, and was discharged in 1936. Yet the discipline, the sense of purpose, and the structure of military life had left an impression. Returning to the farm could no longer satisfy him. Instead, Wittmann re-enlisted in 1936, this time with the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, the elite personal bodyguard regiment of Hitler himself. At 22, his life took a dramatic turn. Starting as an infantryman, he was not yet the legendary figure remembered today. He learned the fundamentals of soldiering in one of the SS's most exacting formations. The Leibstandarte demanded the highest physical, ideological, and disciplinary standards. Wittmann excelled. His natural discipline, physical prowess, and instinct for tactical situations, marking him early on as exceptional. Through the late 1930s, he participated in the formative pre-war operations of the SS. In March 1938, he was part of the annexation of Austria, witnessing German troops welcomed by cheering crowds in Vienna. Later that year, he took part in the absorption of the Sudetenland following the Munich Agreement, and in March 1939, he was involved in the occupation of the rest of Czechoslovakia. These operations shaped him, molding him into a consummate SS officer. The real war erupted in September 1939 with the invasion of Poland. At 25, Wittmann served as an armored car commander and encountered his first real combat. He discovered an unusual fearlessness, a calm under fire that many seasoned soldiers could only aspire to. He moved toward danger instinctively, making rapid decisions that consistently proved correct. Poland fell in just 5 weeks, and Wittmann emerged, decorated and noticed. In May 1940, he fought in France, again in armored cars, again excelling and gaining recognition. The rapid, mechanized German advance over France revealed the full potential of mobile armored warfare, a lesson Wittmann absorbed completely. After France, he transferred to tanks, beginning with the Panzer III, the standard German medium tank of the early war years. His natural tactical instincts translated seamlessly from armored cars to tanks. Soon, he was introduced to the vehicle that would define his legacy, the Tiger I. A 60-ton behemoth with face-hardened armor almost impervious to most Allied anti-tank weapons, it carried the legendary 88mm KWK-36 gun, derived from the famed Flak 88 anti-aircraft cannon, capable of destroying any enemy tank at ranges where return fire was ineffective. The Tiger was cumbersome, mechanically temperamental, and fuel-hungry, but in the hands of the right commander it became a battlefield terror. Wittmann was that commander. His Tiger Thruster combat debut occurred on the Eastern Front during Operation Barbarossa in June 1941. By then, the war in the East had already devolved from the quick victories envisioned by German planners into a grinding attritional struggle. The Soviet Union had endured immense losses but continued to resist, producing massive numbers of tanks, especially the T-34. German crews, expecting technical dominance, were shocked by the T-34, which matched them in quality and surpassed them in quantity. Wittmann confronted this reality with the same unflinching courage and tactical brilliance that would define his career. Survival as a tank commander on the Eastern Front in 1942 and 1943 demanded more than ordinary skill. Thriving there required an almost instinctive tactical sense, a gift that could not be taught, possessed by a rare few. Michael Wittmann had it in full measure. His tally of enemy kills grew rapidly, earning notice even among the elite circle of German tank aces. His approach was methodical, yet daring. He exploited the extended range of his 88mm gun to strike Soviet tanks before they could return effective fire. He maneuvered with precision, finding firing positions that maximized this advantage. The terrain revealed itself to him instantly. He identified defensible points and approach routes faster than the enemy could react. And he did not wait. He always attacked, even while defending. His philosophy was to advance, to seize the initiative, forcing the opponent to respond to him rather than the reverse. The year 1943 tested and solidified Wittmann's legend on the Eastern Front. In February and March, at Kharkov, he took part in the SS counteroffensive that recaptured the city from Soviet control, temporarily stabilizing the southern sector of the front. Combat in Kharkov was relentless. Urban and suburban clashes during the harsh winter, facing Soviet forces riding the momentum of their victory at Stalingrad. SS divisions, including the Leibstandarte, fought with exceptional aggression and tactical ingenuity. Wittmann's Tiger tank was at the heart of the battles, and his kill count soared. Then came Kursk in July 1943, the largest tank battle in history. More than 6,000 tanks clashed across the sprawling terrain of the Kursk salient. Germany committed its newest and most formidable armored vehicles, Tigers, Panthers, and Ferdinand tank destroyers. The Soviets had spent months constructing the most complex defensive system ever seen, with multiple belts of anti-tank artillery, minefields, and fortified positions extending dozens of kilometers deep. The German offensive failed to penetrate this labyrinth. Losses were devastating on both sides. After Kursk, the strategic momentum on the Eastern Front permanently shifted to the Soviet Union, and Germany never launched another major offensive in the East. Yet amid the disaster, Wittmann's individual performance was extraordinary. His Tiger destroyed tank after tank as the SS Panzer Corps fought through Soviet defenses. His kill total during the Kursk offensive was remarkable even by his own prodigious standards. On January 13, 1944, near Teinter in the Chassis Pocket, Wittmann's Tiger confronted Soviet armored forces in a series of engagements that became his most spectacular single-day performance. Throughout the day, his tank annihilated an extraordinary number of Soviet vehicles. While historians have debated the precise figures in German records, noting wartime exaggerations, the reality was undeniable. The destruction and the skill displayed were exceptional. In recognition, Wittmann received the Knight's Cross. Summoned to Hitler's headquarters, he stood before the Führer, who personally decorated him and shook his hand. Germany's propaganda machinery swiftly elevated Wittmann into a symbol. The farmer's son from Vogel had become the nation's premier tank ace, a young, modest, strikingly Bavarian man, heroic in the narrow military sense. His image appeared on newspaper front pages, his story broadcast across radio waves. He exemplified the idea that an individual German could still triumph despite the overwhelming material superiority of the enemy. The oak leaves followed his Knight's Cross, then the swords. Wittmann became one of the most highly decorated soldiers in the German military. He earned promotions and command responsibilities. In spring 1944, he was deployed to France with the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion, equipped with Tigers, positioned to play a central role in countering the inevitable Allied invasion. The invasion came on June 6, 1944, D-Day, the largest amphibious assault in history. Over 150,000 Allied troops landed on Normandy's beaches in a single day. Germany's defenses, despite years of preparation and the so-called Atlantic Wall, could not repel the invasion. The beachhead was established, and the brutal struggle for Normandy commenced. In the days following D-Day, the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion advanced toward the front, Tigers grinding slowly along the narrow lanes of the Norman bocage. The wind slices across the cold metal like a blade. Dawn breaks somewhere in the French countryside, late June 1944. Inside his Panzer IV, a young German tank commander rests his gloved hand on the chilly hatch, surveying the landscape. The air is thick with the scent of oil, smoke, and a tension he cannot place. At first, the sound comes distant and low, almost like approaching thunder. His eyes narrow, recognition dawning. This is no distant artillery. It is heavier, it moves. A tremor shakes the ground beneath him, and what emerges from the horizon will upend everything he believes about the war. Only weeks earlier, senior officers of the German High Command had been dismissive, seated in their polished chambers with maps spread out and red markers tracing enemy positions. Intelligence reports had been read aloud, yet the sheer scale of American production was underestimated. America was churning out tanks by the thousands, yet many in Nazi leadership scoffed. They assumed that quantity meant inferiority, that the Allied machines could never match German precision. Only General Heinz Guderian had warned that overwhelming numbers could defeat even superior engineering, but his caution was ignored. Germany still clung to its faith in armored supremacy. Panzer divisions struck fear across Europe. The Tiger firm, in service since 1942, had already cemented its deadly reputation. Its 88mm KWK-36 gun could annihilate enemy armor from afar, while its frontal plating deflected most Allied shells. The Panther, officially the Panzerkampfwagen 5, was a more recent addition, faster, and armed with a potent 75mm KWK-42 gun. Its long-range accuracy made it lethal. These machines were not merely tools, they symbolized dominance. German crews, trained with discipline and honed by years of Eastern Front combat, believed no Allied tank could stand against them. Across the Atlantic, the American perspective diverged sharply. Instead of seeking perfection in a single design, U.S. planners pursued a broader vision. Victory would hinge on production, logistics, and coordination. Factories from Detroit to the broader Midwest were mobilized for war production. The Detroit tank arsenal grew into one of the largest tank factories ever built. Ford's Willow Run plant, also producing aircraft, demonstrated how rapidly American industry could scale. Shifts ran around the clock. Workers learned fast, turning steel into hulls, installing engines, mounting turrets. The M4 Sherman emerged from assembly lines continuously, a machine of relentless output. The Sherman lacked the heaviest armor, and its 75mm gun in early models struggled against the formidable German tanks. Yet its value lay elsewhere. Reliability, long operational endurance, ease of maintenance, availability of spare parts, and rapid crew training made it a cornerstone of Allied operations. Its sheer numbers mattered most. By mid-1944, over 40,000 Shermans had rolled off production lines, a number that continued to climb. Even before D-Day, American strategists had devised the Sherman's role carefully. It was not intended to hunt tigers. Tank destroyers, such as the M10 Wolverine and later the M36 Jackson, were tasked with that mission. The Sherman supported infantry, exploited breakthroughs, and kept momentum. Air support, artillery engineers, and logistics combined in a synchronized strategy that became a decisive edge. On the 6th of June, 1944, the beaches of Normandy, Omaha, Utah, Gold, and Juneau saw the first light of the Allied invasion. Landings began before sunrise. Waves pounded the landing craft as machine gun fire tore across the shoreline. Specialized Sherman variants, the DD tanks, attempted to swim ashore with flotation devices, some sinking, others reaching the beaches. Once on land, Shermans engaged bunkers and strong points, providing essential support for infantry. Progress was costly, but footholds were secured. Normandy's terrain, with its thick hedgerows and narrow lanes, became a natural fortress for German defenders. Tank movement was restricted, visibility limited. Experienced panzer units exploited this, setting ambushes and concealing anti-tank guns behind dense hedges. Panzerfaust teams lie in wait at short distance, ready to strike. In these early clashes, German tank crews remained confident. When a Tiger or Panther meets a Sherman across open terrain, the odds often favor the German machine. American crews quickly realize that direct long-range fights are perilous, yet they adjust, learning fast under fire. Engineers respond with ingenuity, welding hedgerow cutters, dubbed rhino devices, onto Shermans. These allow tanks to plow through hedges instead of climbing over them, reducing exposure to ambush. A seemingly small modification, but one with far-reaching impact. Tactics shift rapidly. Sherman crews coordinate in units. One tank may draw attention, while another maneuvers around the flank. Infantry advances alongside, shielding armor from close-range threats. His superiors recognized his immense value as a propaganda symbol and feared that his death would deal a blow to German morale. A training command would have kept him away from the front lines. He declined. He returned to his Tiger and back into combat. His reasons remain unrecorded, but it seems likely that multiple factors drove him. Loyalty to his men, the impossibility of imagining a life outside combat, and a sense of personal courage that rendered a safe option unacceptable. Probably all these motives worked together. He fought through July 1944 as the Allied breakout from Normandy gathered momentum. German forces faced relentless pressure, and Allied material superiority was overwhelming. Allied air power made every movement a gamble with death. The Tigers of the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion were constantly engaged, sustaining losses, undergoing repairs, and returning to battle only to incur more damage. The attrition was unsustainable. Germany was losing Normandy, and anyone who could read a map understood it. On August 8, 1944, Operation Totalize commenced. This massive Allied offensive aimed to break through German lines south of Caen, advancing toward Falaise. Canadian and Polish forces, supported by overwhelming artillery and air preparation, struck the German defenses. The 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion was committed to the fight. Wittmann's Tiger was engaged near the village of Saint-Aignan-de-Crémenil. On that Norman road that August morning, Michael Wittmann was killed. He was 30 years old. The exact circumstances of his death have been debated for decades. Several Allied units claimed credit for destroying his Tiger. For many years, the dominant account attributed it to a rocket from an RAF Typhoon aircraft. Later research favored the Canadian Sherman Firefly tanks of the Sherbrooke Fusiliers Regiment. The Firefly, a Sherman equipped with a British 17-pounder high-velocity gun, was one of the few Allied weapons capable of reliably penetrating Tiger armor at combat range. The most detailed modern studies support the Firefly theory, though debate continues. Wittmann's body was not immediately recovered. In the chaos surrounding Saint-Aignan-de-Cramonil, the destroyed Tiger's location and the fate of its crew went unrecorded. For nearly 40 years, his remains were missing. In 1983, road construction near Saint-Aignan-de-Cramonil uncovered human remains, later identified as Wittmann and his crew. They were reinterred at the German military cemetery at La Combe in Normandy. He rests today on the same Norman soil where he died, surrounded by thousands of German soldiers who fell fighting in France. His grave has become a pilgrimage site for military history enthusiasts, especially those drawn to tank warfare. Visitors from around the world stand before his grave, leave flowers, and take photographs. His legend endures in a way few Second World War figures outside the highest command levels can match. It is essential to understand what that legend represents, and what it does not. Michael Wittmann was an exceptionally skilled tank commander. His tactical brilliance across two fronts, his courage, and his extraordinary action at Villers-Bouage are real and should be acknowledged. Yet Wittmann was an SS officer. He wore the SS insignia, served the SS, and was celebrated by its propaganda apparatus for the purposes of the SS and the Nazi regime it served. The organization that made him famous was also responsible for running concentration camps, commanding Einsatzgruppen that murdered over 1 million Jews in the Soviet Union, committing atrocities at Oradour-sur-Glane, and executing Canadian POWs just days before his greatest battle. Wittmann the tank ace cannot be separated from Wittmann the SS officer. Both aspects exist within the same man, forming a single story. He died at 30 in a burning Tiger on a Norman road. He spent over a third of his short life inside tanks and armored vehicles, fighting wars that Germany initiated and could not win. He was extraordinarily capable at what he did, but what he did served one of history's most criminal regimes. The combination of talent and context, courage and institution, legend and reality, all together form the complete picture of Michael Wittmann. Anything less is myth. The dead deserve nothing less than the full truth. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.